Okay, we're gonna get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this Monday evening for the Education Justice Academy Spring 2023 info session. We're really excited to, share a lot of the progress that we have experienced as an organization over the last year, and what we're excited to do with our next academy. But to kick us off, we're going to start with some introductions. My name is Sally Ching. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the co-founders of Education Justice Academy. And, part of what brings me to the ed world or ed space and to EJA is being a child of immigrants who, experienced an education system that didn't serve people like me. And, since then have been really passionate about education policy and advocating for an education that really does serve underrepresented folks. And so, we're going to go around and introduce the other speakers, and then maybe get to know some of the other folks on this call as well. You can introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, and also what brings you here tonight, whether that be what brings you to EJA or what brings you to education or school boards. We'll let you interpret that, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to Brianna.
Hi, folks. It's so great to see you all tonight, as well as those who will be on the recording later. My name is Brianna Mullen. I also use she, her pronouns, and I'm also one of the co-founders for EJA. And really what brings me to this work is just a deep belief that schools are the founding block of our democracy. And so in order for our democracy to be working, we have to have school boards that are representative of the people, and most importantly, the kids that are in our school system. And I personally was both a homeless youth and have family involved in the foster care system. And so I think schools can be really important safety nets for kids like me who grew up. And I will pass it over to Chris.
Hey y'all, my name is Chris Balillo. I use he, him pronouns, and I've been working as the program director for EJA. What brings me to this space, I think my passion for education is really rooted in my lived experience, and growing up in Miami and witnessing the dichotomies in education and the disparities in terms of just the resources that I was provided as a student, growing up in a Title I neighborhood and going to my Title I elementary school versus experiencing a very well-funded magnet middle school and ultimately high school. In doing that, I think I'm really called to the work of EJ because those experiences throughout my life really centered how important school boards and the decisions that my school board members made were to crafting those experiences, both like the access to education and the really uplifting and empowering experiences that I had in our school systems, while also recognizing that there was so much progress that had to be made in terms of some of the disparities that I did experience at my high school. It's that juxtaposition that really draws me to EJ and educational equity work today. And I will pass it over to Hector.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for hosting this space. My name is Hector Bustos. I use he, him pronouns. I reside in Santa Ana, California. I think what brings me here is also just like my lived experience in education and growing up in a predominantly low-income community and then going off to college in a predominantly white community, affluent community, and really being able to see a lot of the disparities amongst my classmates and myself when it came to my K-12 education and what that meant, and being able to actually interact with classmates from other cities in the same county but surrounding cities, and how how close we were as far as distance, but just how different our school districts and how our education varied. So that was really interesting to me, and thank you again for hosting this space. And if we're just popcorning, I'll just popcorn it over to Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Consavage. I use she, her pronouns. And I was drawn to this. I have a friend who did it last year. And I actually went to high school with Brianna, although I'm a couple years older than her. And I lived in Tennessee for 10 years, and I have friends who have kids there. I'm currently in Chico, California, and just seeing what school boards around the world, the country are doing, specifically the ones my friends' kids go to in Tennessee, with removing things like books from classrooms and then removing information from textbooks about things like slavery, really got me very, started me paying a lot more close attention to school boards in general. And then also I have friends who are teachers who I'm, just, it stresses me out. I don't want them to get shot at school, or at work. So that's kind of what brought me here. And so I'm just kind of like dipping my toe in, and that's pretty much it. And if we're popcorning, oh gosh, whoever else, Jacqueline, have you spoken?
No, thank you so much, Sarah. My name's Jacqueline, but I go by Jackie. Pronoun she, her. And I'm here. I actually found out about this program like a week after the last cohort launch, and I was sad about it. But I actually took the leap of faith and ran for office this last term. Unfortunately, I lost by 1%, but again, it's something I'm really passionate about and wanting to serve my community for many of the reasons that you all have shared. Yeah, I think I saw a lot of my community members struggling, of course, even before, but during the pandemic is definitely much more highlighted. People having to figure out how to lend each other laptops and things like that. And recently my sister entered back into the education field, and she shared with me like that first day that she went to the school, how like the #1 training, or the first training they went was for active shooting. And again, that's not the world I want for anybody. So yeah, just continuing and wanting to learn, and how is it that I can make an impact. But that's me, and I'm from Pico Rivera, California. And I think that's everyone. I can pass it back.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thank you all for sharing what brings you here. I think, as we were hearing, the themes that tie us all together are the idea that, we believe that justice and equity can be accomplished via schools and school boards, but we're currently not seeing that. And I think it's particularly important to note that we come from all across California, but we're noticing these issues in our local communities. And so that's a lot of the goal here with EJA is, we want to make sure that folks who want to do this kind of work via their local districts feel connected to the folks all across the state who are also trying to fight this fight at the local level, and feel like you have a cohort who you could lean on for that kind of support, but also to feel like you have the tools that you need to know how to enact that change via your school boards. And so with that, I'm going to go into an overview of today's info session. So we did our welcome. We're going to go over an overview of what Education Justice Academy is. What is our mission? What does the Academy look like? We'll walk through the application and what the deadlines and processes there. And then we'll be joined by some alum from our first cohort who are here to answer any questions and share their experience with the Academy. And then we'll open it up to answer any questions that any folks here have on the call, whether it be about the Academy or the application, or really any other question you might have. And so with that, I'm going to throw it over to Brianna to walk through what EJA is.
Thanks, Sally. So it sounds like folks here have, a fairly strong lived experience of being on a school board and understanding what the kind of powers school board members have. But oftentimes, even in that small experience, there's like a much bigger network of power that school boards have. And so, when we look across the country, 1/5 of the elected officials currently in the United States are school board members, and they control over $750 billion in funds. Probably after this last year with the CARES Act, it might be closer to $1 trillion. We know that the demographics of these school board members are not representative of the kind of people that are both in our schools and just in our communities, period. So the average age is 64, 80% of our school board members are white. Even in a state like California, where over 60% of our kids are kids of color. And so what our mission is to recruit, train, and support school board members, and not only to recruit a new cohort, but also to support those school board members that want to focus on educational justice and equity at the district level. There is a lot of power that the district has in order to make changes. And so what we're here to do is to really focus on this school district level of change. And that's where our theory of change comes from. So our vision is that every district has knowledgeable and capable school board members who reflect the diversity of their community and can create sustainable change in school districts. Education Justice Academy envisions school districts who make a profound difference in the quality and culture of school districts and student outcomes. And I think we can see just how powerful school board members are, really, unfortunately, in the last year, when school boards have been used as a vehicle for really anti-justice efforts, often folks who are centering homophobia, racism, xenophobia as part of their political mission. And so we were founded before a lot of this stuff got off the ground, but it means that we have a bigger challenge in front of us to really make sure that our schools are able to move through this. So we utilize a combination of in-person trainings and online curriculum to strengthen the knowledge of our cohort members. But I think really the thing I want to convey is that we're really trying to create a community. We're trying to create a community of people who are already doing this work and ways that we can learn from one another, because the work is large. And if you or any of your friends are like my group of friends, some of us are even tired from the work that we've been doing already. And so what we've really come to realize is that we need to do this work in coalition if we're going to do it and it be successful. And so we want to create a community where people can come and learn from one another in order to push forward this justice-based work.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue into talking about how we actually do this. So Brianna alluded to it a little bit, referring to in-person curriculum or in-person weekends and online curriculum. So I want to spend the next couple of minutes really breaking down what the program looks like. We host 2 in-person weekends, and we really like to think of these as bookends to the EJA experience. Really, that first weekend being a launch of the cohort and this opportunity to connect with the other members of the EJA community. We, as Brianna mentioned, we're really focused on how this cohort becomes a community of learning where you can learn and grow with one another. And that first weekend is really integral to that. And then the second weekend is really graduation. It is the celebratory moment where we get to really acknowledge the work that has happened over the last couple of months. So the picture on the left is the graduation from the last cohort, and everyone has their little certificates in that photo, just to show that it is a celebratory moment because of the connections that are formed within the cohort. And in the past, cohort members have engaged in crucial public narrative work and discussions on navigating the board system. We use these in-person weekends as an opportunity to enrich the curriculum that you'll be engaging in over the next 10 weeks. So then that transitions to the online curriculum and what this 10-week commitment looks like. As I mentioned, this 10-week commitment, aside from the in-person weekends, is a series of meetings that you'll engage with. And these take on different structures, and we're constantly iterating, but we host discussions and conversations on curricular topics that are most relevant to being an effective school board member. So we try to be input oriented as well, so that the members of our cohort, as we're crafting our curriculum, also get to discuss what's most important to their development. And in doing that, we specifically bring in expert speakers to present to our cohort members on these topics. So some examples, we had an expert speaker on charter schools because that was a particularly important piece of curriculum for our cohort members. And then cohort members throughout this process, we wanted to uplift that cohort members are also paired with a graduate student. And the importance of this is you're paired with a graduate student really in support of a specific research project focused on the district that you're working in, because we want to pair you with resources. We want to approach you as part of this program with the resources that you need to make change within your district and to understand the dynamics that are currently at play in your district. So when we think about how this breaks down, we have a fun little graph from the last cohort that really just shows how cohort members thought that they were spending their time. So we had like pre-class work that was around 2 hours, EJA meetings at around 2 hours, that totaled around a 4-hour commitment. Again, this was for the previous cohort, but this is just one piece of us showing you what the previous cohort members have seen as their commitment to EJA and as their experience. And we'll continue to highlight EJA cohort member experiences throughout the course of the webinar as well. So yeah, Brianna dropped in the chat. I don't know if you want to uplift that.
Yeah, I just want to call out that, you know, and some of our alumni will speak to some of the quality of speakers, but we're really, Sally and I have been doing this work professionally collectively for about 20 years. So we have quite a breadth of speakers that we're hoping that we have brought in and will continue to bring in. And, you know, really our goal is to not only, you know, give you the background that we think is necessary, but also point you in the direction of the people and the experts that you can call upon as a school board member so that you have follow-up contacts. We know that the work is not going to end after the academy, and that's really the starting place for many folks. And so we want to give you resources and bring you into the network of educational policy professionals within California.
Yeah, and I think I'll pass it on to Sally.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And so turning this into what does it look like for the academy schedule? So right now we are actively accepting applications for our spring cohort. Applications are due Monday, March 6th, so that's a week from today. Applicants will be notified of their acceptance into the program by March 27th. And then that kickoff weekend that Chris was talking about will take place April 14th through 16th. And then our virtual 10-week sessions will begin the subsequent Sunday, April 23rd, and run until July 2nd. So these are every Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m. And then we'll have a brief recess by the end of that, and then come back together on July 14th for our closing weekend. And then to talk about a little bit of what the application process looks like. So our application is available on our website. I know as you all start to dig into it, it can look a little bit daunting, but actually it's just 2 core question sections. The first being 4 questions on equity and community. So we're trying to get a sense of your values and your connection to your local community. And then the second set of questions are 6 questions on vision and experience. So we're just trying to get an understanding of your relationships to schools and the vision you have for the education within your community. What do you hope for in the future for your community? There is no word minimum or maximum for any of these questions. However, we suggest a length of about 350 for each. So, you know, we're not looking for really lengthy answers. We're just, you know, trying to get an understanding of who you are, how you view these questions. And then we recognize that writing things may not be everyone's preferred form of applying. And so we do have the option of video submission. If you would prefer to answer any or all of the questions via video, you are welcome to upload that as well. And then the rest of the application collects pretty typical information. We do ask for a resume, but just to get an understanding of your professional background. Again, there is no, you know, minimum level of experience or any sort of particular professional experience we're looking for in EJA members. And I'll actually pass it over to Brianna to talk about what it is we are looking for.
Great. And Sally did half my work by putting up our 6 aspects that we rate applications on. And, you know, like Sally said, I think the most important thing, if you could walk away with anything from this, is that everyone is qualified to participate in this academy. The point of what we're trying to get at is really who are the leaders that we should be investing in within their community who have a commitment to this work. Because at the end of the day, being a school board member is service. It is so much service that we want to make this job a lot easier for you. But we also want to make sure that we're the right place for you to work with, because we have very strong values that center our work. And so alignment and values is the number one selection criteria. We're also looking for lived experience. That particularly touches on if you represent a under or unrepresented demographic on your school board, which is going to be totally different based on where you live, right? Every community in California has a different demographic, and almost all of the school district boards are not representative, but we want to try and focus our efforts on folks who would then make that board more representative of that demographic. A commitment to district work that doesn't need to be that you've necessarily already participated in district work. Maybe it's you went to the school district, maybe you volunteered at a school event, maybe you are actually just really committed to youth in general. And other community service work. We just want to understand your kind of pattern and history of engaging with public service work. We find it is helpful if you know some issues that are local to your district, because after a lot of work on school reform efforts over the last 30 years, at the end of the day, all school issues are local and all district issues are similarly local. And so, while we will be working with you and pairing you up with a research fellow who will help you research the issues in your district, if you've already been involved with the district for years as a student, as a sibling, as an auntie, as a cousin, those are all valid forms of being able to work and know your district. But the educational issues are local, and we're really hoping that you know what they are so we can help you address them. And then the last one is a commitment to communal learning. And that really comes from the fact that we are a learning community, which means that we are asking people to commit to not only your own learning in the process and being open to new ways of doing things, but also to the community that you're participating in. And, one thing that I hope our alumni will talk about is that when you're learning together, you're learning different ways to solve problems, right? Like some district might find that they're able to really address English learner proficiency in a specific way and that they want to engage in that. Another district may decide that they really want to expand, ethnic studies to K through 6 and not just 6 through 12 and similar initiatives. And so, we're not here to necessarily tell you what to do in your district. We're trying to figure it out together. And that means that we all need to be committed to the learning process so that we're all getting out of it what we're putting into it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brianna. And so we have been joined by some of our alum from our first cohort. And so we'll have them each introduce themselves and then answer some questions that we have, and then any questions that you might have for them. And so Rebecca and Melissa, if you could just share really quickly your name, pronouns, where you're based, and what your current involvement is with schools in your local community.
Rebecca, do you have a preference of going first or second?
You go first.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Ramirez Medina. I'm graduate of the first cohort of EJA. Currently my involvement is I am a member of the LCAP, Local Control and Accountability Plan, Parent and Student Advisory Committee, Alphabet Soup, basically a district level parent advisory committee for the Oakland Unified School District. But I also do some work on the English language learners subcommittee. So I'm kind of at the end of my second year doing that work, but it was actually because of my first year that I became interested in EJA, because I was on the committee for 1 year. And I was thoroughly confused by a lot of the information that was thrown my way, because I'm, just kind of a regular, parent of a student in the district. And there's a lot that I didn't understand. And so when this kind of opportunity, I learned about this opportunity, I thought it was kind of perfect to sort of fill in some of those gaps so that I could better engage in the issues that come up in that leadership committee. So that's me.
Yeah, and my name is Rebecca Barrett. I am an elected school board trustee for the Contra Costa Community College District. So it was a bit of an interesting experience doing the different community colleges versus K-12. Yeah, so that's kind of where I came to EJA. Contra Costa is in the Bay Area. It's a suburb of the greater San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm just here really to listen in tonight and be supportive. I think I kind of sprung this on Brianna and everyone at EJA last minute because they did not RSVP. So I'm just here to be present and supportive, but Melissa's got a lot of really great things to share with y'all.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, Becca participating in our inaugural cohort was, I would say, a happy accident on two fronts, because one, as a community college board trustee, we got to spend a lot of time talking about how California really has a K-14 public education system and the ways that oftentimes that disconnect between K-12 and community colleges doesn't serve either institution that well. And so she really pushed us, and, we will continue to kind of think about how we can expand that role, because there's also, community college boards kind of suffer from as many of the representation issues that K-12 boards do. The second thing was that Becca was already an elected official. She was going into her second term. And I know that it was incredibly helpful to have somebody who was already on a board. So if you are already on a board and you're thinking, is this still the program for me? She might be able to speak to the aspects that she got out of the program, and the fact that it, having a mixed cohort of folks who could talk about what they had gone through, especially as a young elected official, and then like how EJ was able to help them, think about their second term or the remaining years of their term.
And to add to Brianna's point, like to again emphasize why it was so great to have a mixed cohort. So we had Rebecca, who was an elected official, but we also had two folks who were actively running while they were participating in the campaign. So it was great for folks to hear about what their experiences were like, because we had some members of the cohort who were unsure about whether or not they wanted to run. So they got to hear firsthand from people who were going through it at the moment. And I will also share that those two people did get elected to their respective districts. But we are also joined by another alum of our program. Julian, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly? Your name, pronouns, where you're based, what your role in ed is?
Did I just make it on time or what? That was perfect. See, I'm getting better at this, Brianna, as we can tell. Hi, everybody. I am Julian Cuevas, or Julian Cuevas. My role before joining the board, the school board, few roles. I used to be the Director of Government Affairs for the California Department of Education, and currently sit as the Director of Policy and Governmental Affairs for the Inland Empire Community Foundation. So thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for joining. And so, I do have some questions that I could ask to our alum, but I wanted to open it up to our attendees and see if you had any questions either for them or for the leadership team on, anything that you might have. And also feel free to drop your questions in the chat if you prefer. We could relay them.
Julian, I have a question just because it got brought up. What was it like to do EJ while you were campaigning?
It was so hard. And I mean that in a good way, because there was so much great content. There is so much great content that comes out of this program. And because I was running a very rigorous campaign in my hometown, trying to balance the time of doing FaceTime in at events, and then also putting the good time into this program, just made it challenging. And I'm so glad that you guys are moving up the program now, which is Brianna and I had talked about this. She said, yeah, this is just a one-off. We're going to move this up so it's more timely with election cycles. I think that'll make all the difference in the role for you guys. But aside of that, aside of the time management challenges, and that's all on me, not on EJA, I think what was really cool about it was being able to implement what I was learning in real time. A lot of the things that were going down as far as like learning about board policy, and the Brown Act to a certain degree. I think what was really cool about being in a community like this allowed me to actually lean on my peers who have done this once or twice. I see Rebecca on this call now, so she knows what I'm talking about, where we could actually just riff on each other about some of the experiences that we're facing, the questions that we were facing from the community, even questions we were facing from the district and other candidates, who like to, for lack of better terms, boast a little bit that they were more experienced than myself, but little did I know at the time. And I believe you, Brianna. I think after getting through this program, learned very quickly that I think I'm probably more trained and prepared than most of our board members, which is crazy. It's crazy, but yeah, I would say challenging. It was hard because it was during an election cycle, but the riff side of it was being able to apply the things in real time, and then actually being able to test it back with my team here, my crew here, I think was really fruitful.
Glad to hear you felt you had a built-in support system with this program.
For sure.
I guess I'll throw a question to anyone, if you want to answer. Just what portions of the program were particularly impactful for you?
I can start. So I was sort of like the odd woman out in my cohort in that I was the only person who was not also a professional in education. So I'm a nurse, and my only experience in education was I minored in it in college. It was like a thing you do. So that was sort of like the limit of my of any kind of like expertise. So I really came on the cohort as just a parent wanting to make a difference in her district. And so it's hard to pick one, but I know I'm gonna get I clowned on a little bit for this, but I loved the readings. I thought they were very helpful. I know that doing the reading was not, I see Julian laughing, was not a popular choice, but you do the content is actually quite varied, and it's the kind of thing where if you're not, I think if you're just not the type of person who's not super into the reading, that's fine. You can just listen to the audio stuff, or you can just watch the video stuff, and you still get a lot out of it. And then you'll have the, the dialogue with your with your cohort members, at your weekly meetings. And so there's still lots of different ways to get something out of it. But I did find the readings helpful because coming at it as sort of like a regular layperson, I just have all these questions that kind of come up in like activist parent spheres of like, charter schools are ruining everything, and if we just got rid of them, all the problems would be solved. And we're just refusing to pay teachers, and we could pay them more, and it would just be so easy. And so we sort of get into these like loops of like the solutions are really quite simple, and someone somewhere is just refusing to do it. And so the reading content, but also the program overall sort of helped me to answer some of those questions, but also provide the really complex answers, because it's never really as simple as like yes or no, or there are no easy fixes in education, I guess. And so that was sort of the most impactful part for me.
Yeah, I think I'll riff off Melissa. There was probably one segment that I thought was most fruitful for me, which was actually hearing from either current or former school board members on a panel. I just thought that was really cool because we had gone through so many weeks of learning about content, and to a certain degree, some of it felt a little hypothetical, right? As a student, like we're learning about this, like how do you really practice that? And then we actually got a handful of board members, some from really challenging school districts, to come and just share their story. I think that made it more tangible for me, for lack of better terms. It just made it seem like, okay, like you all made it through a couple of terms in very difficult school districts. The rest of us could probably make this work too. But I think it also just seeing how young these school board members were made me feel like, okay, I'm also not out of my element, out of my realm. In my particular school district, at least the prior board, quite elderly, in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And so someone like me coming into the picture, they see me as a kid. I mean, I'm in my mid 30s. I've got kids. I'm a grown ass man, as they say. I'm a professional, and that they make you feel like a child. And so I think hearing from other elected officials around our age, I think made it more feasible, and actually gave me the ammo to say, yeah, we got this. So I think that was helpful.
I'm just gonna mute myself. Oh,
No, that was mine.
sorry. Sorry, I was just gonna mute myself, and not really a question, but just thank you all for naming all those things, because as someone that did try running, I faced a lot of those same issues, and I would have loved to, like, again, now thinking in the future, like that sounds like a group of people that I would want to like be around with to assure me that it's okay.
Gonna open it up again if anyone has any questions. If not, I can ask one. What was the application process like for each of you?
It was so daunting. Not on you, on me, because it made me self-reflect. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I had been telling my story to myself for so long, like, I know why I'm doing this, but then you see the questions and you got to put the words to paper. And now these words are going to be read by somebody else that's not in your head. That was daunting to me, because now it made it real. It almost made it as real as actually filing the paperwork with the county to say that I'm running, because it was one of those moments where it's like you really had to dig deep and say, yeah, why are we doing this? What is your story, and what is your commitment to this? And I knew, I mean, granted, obviously committing to a program is different than committing to being an elected official, but to me, they're one and two of the same. Anytime you're committing yourself to something, you want to put your best into it. And so I don't know, I just felt like I was going to get judged. Like, all right, a lot of people are going to look at this. They're going to see my ridiculous responses. Am I qualified? Are they going to, there's as a person of color, as a man of color, there is a certain level of imposter syndrome that comes with this for me personally. And I know quite a few folks in my world in this space that have shared confidentially that same sentiment, that there's just this certain sense of imposter syndrome. And so just knowing that it's, for lack of better terms, normal to feel like this to a certain degree, it also just, it made me feel like, should I be applying? And, but of course, this community that's in front of you now made me feel otherwise. And so I think going through that process, testing it for myself, having confidence in myself, right? And then again, putting my words to paper and letting other people actually read it, I think forced me to get prepared for this program, and more prepared for the race that I was going into.
I have a follow-up question for Julian. Did you answer some of them with the video response option?
Nah, I was still
I thought you did. Okay.
I was still trying to look pretty for the camera for my photo shoot, so I wasn't ready for it.
Okay. I thought you had. I was gonna say maybe you should
No,
speak to that, but that's
honestly,
fine.
I'm not gonna lie. Had I known, I think I read through the instructions too fast, that I was like immediately just started typing, right? And I'm like, damn, if I would have just said this in like 2 minutes, it would have been fast.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I also did not do the video option. I did but yeah, I guess I echo a lot of the same sentiments as Julian, and I think there was a moment where I was like, do I sound crazy? Do I sound like extreme radical and I need to calm down? It was more of like that, those were the kind of the doubts. But I think that's why I'm really glad that this I think an info session is actually really good to kind of get a sense of like, is this something you would want to do? So really it's not like, are you good enough? Are you not good enough? Is like, do you share our values and our vision is kind of more of what it's about. And I sort of like figured that out ultimately. But yeah, those were the only kind of like doubts I had. So really that's all that is to say. Just speak from I know this is going to sound corny, but speak from your heart and just speak to what it is truly like, what truly brings you to the table for these types of issues. It's not the type of application where you need to impress your reader. Yeah.
Yeah, just reiterating the last thing you said, Melissa, like, yeah, there's no need to impress us. Like, you all are all impressive in your own right for the work that you're already doing. I think we just want to get to know you better and understand, like, is there value alignment that here? Is there an opportunity here for us to, help you in your journey in accomplishing what you want to do? And so, yeah, I'm going to open it up again for questions. And again, if you are shy, feel free to just drop it in the chat. If not, oh, Sarah.
I had a question. I had a couple sort of questions. I'm not 100% certain I want to run for school board. And like, that's something, if I were to ever run for something, that's probably as far as I would go. But I'm still not 100% certain, although I did like look up, there's literally no one currently on the board who lives in my area. It's an at-large seat, so that's a whole other issue. But so I kind of just want to know, like, what I was interested in this because, like, I want to know ways where we can hold school boards accountable if I didn't want to run, and help support people who might run in lieu of like me running. And so is this still something, even if I don't have future plans to run, is this still something that I can do?
Melissa.
Yes, I'm happy to answer that question. So yes, it is. I am, well, one, I'm not on a school board, and two, I've never run for a school board, and three, maybe I will someday and maybe I won't. And I'm still figuring that question out, but and I was pretty transparent about that, when I spoke to Sally and Brianna before applying, and also in my application process, is that I'm interested in doing work to support my local public education system, but not necessarily in that specific way, but I wanted to sort of learn more about the process. And so, yeah, and it ended up being great. I learned a ton. There is absolutely no pressure to make that choice or that decision. It's sort of, but what's nice is that if I ever do decide that I'm going to run for school board, I already sort of have these relationships built and kind of like a support system to fall back on. So the committee that I'm on now is basically a district-wide committee of parents and some students, but mostly parents. And we sort of are kind of like a state mandated watchdog group at the community level of the district as well as the school board. And so there are definitely ways to get involved so that you can sort of keep your thumb on the pulse of, what are the decisions being made for your local school district, and do they sort of fit the values of justice? So there's definitely, the answer is yes, there's other ways to do it. And you can definitely learn about it through EJA. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And that kind of brings me to my second sort of question is, I don't have kids. I don't want kids. I will never have children. And so I think people sometimes are like, then why do you care about school boards? And it's like, because I lived in a state for 10 years where school boards wrecked a whole lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, and it bleeds into other things.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know if like anyone had any advice on like.
I have an answer for that as well, but I'll let Julian go.
Go. Yeah,
So
anyone who
that
has an answer.
cracks me up because I got 3 kids, 3 and under, right? So just to hear the antithesis of that is hilarious to me. So I hear you, no kids. Yeah, I think that ship has sailed for me at this point. But let me tell you this much though. And I'm gonna give you a very hard answer on this because I know this is being recorded, so I'm very careful with how I say this. But there are people on the board, including myself, that have kids that use that as just a reason to get on the board. And forgive my language here, but that's bullshit. Like either you're in it for the right reasons or you're not. I don't care that you have kids on the board. Some people in the community do care about that. They want to know, oh, well, do you actually have stake in the game or skin in the game? I think there's an audience for everybody, right? There's going to be an audience that you're going to hear from that says, if you don't have kids, why do you even care? Right? In the system, why do you even care for running? And there's going to be people that just say, you know what, I don't care that you have kids in the system. I just want to know that you're going to do good for our kids and that you're going to do good for our district. So it just know that there is no perfect candidate. You're not going to make everybody happy. People are going to slice and dice you however they see fit. As long as your heart's in the right place and as long as you feel like you've got something to offer, then you do it. You do it and then you build a support system around you. And then you hope to God you win a race, and then that support system will still remain there for you as you continue through your first couple of terms there. But I wouldn't worry about it. Like I think I got asked the question maybe 2 or 3 times during the campaign trail, if I had kids of my own. So it wasn't asked very often. I got asked that once so far at a board meeting. Somebody tried to do a gotcha moment on me and like, do you even have kids in the system? Because again, I look like a child apparently to these folks. I'm like, I do. My kid's in preschool. As a matter of fact, my son's enrolled in the school district. So like, what's your point? And as soon as I said that, they kind of redirected how they were going to approach me, but it didn't necessarily redirect their question. Like the question was still going to remain. It was just a matter of how they were going to try and do a gotcha moment on live camera in a live moment. But there's just going to be people like that regardless of the issue. So I wouldn't, now having been through this program on the campaign trail and now sitting in the seat that I'm in now, not a huge concern.
Okay.
Just have a response ready for it, right? Just because people will ask you about that. Other than that,
okay,
I wouldn't worry about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Julian. Some people use the parenting card as sort of like just a free pass for a seat at the table, when they have sort of other intentions. But there's one, and I think that your intentions sound pure. Like you don't have to have kids to care about building a happy, healthy community. Because that's really what it's about, right? You're like, but I will say this, it's easier. It is easier when you have access to a kid. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean? In terms of like getting insider information, because that's sort of how I've met people. But there are, and I can sort of talk to you one-on-one to sort of figure out your specific situation, but at least in the Oakland Unified District, there are mechanisms for community members to participate in the process who aren't necessarily there as like parents or guardians. So there are ways, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you.
So one last wrap-up question for our alum is just why should others apply to EJA?
I think you should just do it. Because you like you only stand to gain from it. Really, like you only stand to gain. Even if you never, run for school board, even if you never have some sort of official, it's a really great learning space. And at minimum, you'll come out of it understanding California's education system so much better than when you went in. So the only thing you stand to lose is, I guess, a little bit of time, but really, I think it's set up in a way that you can sort of kind of mold your time commitment. There's kind of the, well, one thing I like about EJA is that it's structured in a way that has sort of meant to, what I imagine it's meant to kind of like model the education system that we're actually trying to build. So it's not punitive. No one's gonna like get mad at you if you like can't make it to a meeting. No one's getting mad at you if you didn't do the reading. Like, it's really just meant to be a community-based learning space. And that's why you should join.
So I've got back of an envelope, literally on the back of an envelope, right? I wrote 3 reasons. One, it is very rare to be in a room full of people that are just as passionate about community change than I've been in with this room. And I don't mean that as a talking point. And by the way, like, no one was planted here. Like, we weren't prepared for this stuff. Like, we were told, hey, this is happening. We'd love to have you if you can make it. So just want to be very transparent that this is not planted. This is not pre-scripted. Melissa and Rebecca and I are here because we truly, the others are obviously busy doing their thing, but we truly believe in this program. And I think being in this community with Chris and Sally and Brianna, like, they're just as passionate about this stuff as we are, as people, about making it sounds so corny, but making a difference, because that's really what it's all about. I think it's measurable, right? Like, you look for ways that you can tactically, strategically, and impactfully make a difference in your community. And this is one measurable way to do that, is to, at least for a few months, be able to commit yourself to a program that just provides you the tools to be successful. And then it's up to you whether or not you want to use them. And how much time you want to dive deeper into it. I mean, there's a certain number of hours, as they say, like any course, right? To do the reading, to do the assignments. And then if you want to dive deeper in that and learn more, like, it's there, and the team is there to support you in that. There's a wealth of knowledge from them. The side of the fact that they're, at Stanford and like one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met, like, that's just a plus. Like, that's amazing. So I want to mark that. Second, preparedness, right? Like, you heard me say it earlier. It's sad to say this, but there aren't a lot of elected officials that walk into this prepared, particularly board members. And now that I've been in my seat now for a couple of months, I have actually gone through training with other larger entities. I'll refrain from speaking the name, but just know that there's a larger entity that you get the formal training from. And it's not that it's bad, it's just that it's one day for like 8 hours, and good luck, right? And I think, honest to God, had I not gotten this training here, I'd be scared shitless walking back into my next board meeting. I wouldn't feel prepared to know what questions to ask, what policies to look at, what really my role is as a board member, because that's scary. It is a huge responsibility, right? You've got students' lives in your hands, right? Their futures in your hands. You've got teachers and classified staff who rely on you to make the right decisions. And if you don't know what the hell you're doing, right, you could make a wrong move and really have a ripple effect with someone's lives. And for me, just knowing that and only going through an 8-hour training session, like, that would not be sufficient. So knowing that this is, yes, it's a little more extensive, it's like 3 months, but you walk out of here feeling prepared. And there's resources that you have at your fingertips, people at your fingertips to ask questions to, and that is literally everything. And then the last thing I'd say is community. I can't tell you how many times I've been able to text Brianna or text other former classmates here of mine, like Cindy, who also just got elected, or Rebecca, like, literally sitting in the hot seat. Like, they're asking me, how are you? I just saw this issue pop up in your district. Are you okay? Like, anything I could do to support you? Like, didn't know that I needed that, to be honest. I felt like I was sort of on my own, dealing with that on my own. And then when people reach out to me like that, and Rebecca, I started to reach out to you to say thank you again. But like, I didn't know I needed that in that moment. And it was just so comforting to know that I wasn't alone in this. And that other classmates too were like, yo, like, we're going through it too. And so, like, let's go grab a drink, or let's talk about this, or let's jump on a Zoom call. Or like I said, like with Brianna, I've known Brianna for so many years. I'll text her like, hey, shit just hit the fan. Like, do you have a second? She's like, actually, I'm in Europe, but yeah, let me call you in an hour. I'm like, you're in Europe. Why are you answering my calls? Like, but that's the level of dedication that this team has. They want to make sure you're successful. And I think that's everything. So I think for what it's worth, just even if, like Sarah mentioned, you're not sure you want to run, just know that at minimum, you walk out of here with more information, more prepared. Who knows? Maybe going through this course, you're like, you know what? I feel more confident. I think I do want to do this. Maybe this is the tipping point for you. Or for Jacqueline or Hector, like if you guys are thinking about this as well, like just know that you're not alone in all of this. And as more cohorts graduate from this program, the team is only going to get bigger. The wealth of knowledge is only going to get deeper. So I'm just so excited to see where this goes next, and that's why I'm here. I truly believed in this program. It meant so much to me. I learned so much from it. The least I could do is give 30 minutes of my evening to come back and just share some knowledge from our experience with you all.
Becca, I want to give you a minute as well before we
Yeah.
close out.
So this is gonna sound trite, but I do think knowledge is power, and EJA isn't necessarily targeted at young people, but I do think it's just by the nature of the space that it's created, it attracts a certain generation of leaders that are coming up. And those spaces are kind of designed to keep knowledge away from us because of power. As Julian said, like there is an established training for elected officials, and it's, you know, a one-day experience at a conference. And really it's about like limiting legal liability and keeping you out of jail. Like, what can you legally say in a meeting and what you can't say? And then they're relatively policy neutral. And in fact, oftentimes like discourage you from getting into the weeds on policy because that's the superintendent's job. But if you don't know like basic or at least like top line pieces, you don't know what questions to ask when you're on the dais or questions to ask when you're in your meeting with the superintendent to even try and push or steer in the right direction. And that's when it comes to like board members and you're elected. Like also, God help the everyday citizen that doesn't have access to the Byzantine amount of bureaucracy that's put on our schools. And again, like I think that's designed to be complicated on purpose. My school district, my K-12 district, not my college district, just had a pretty egregious active racism done by middle school students. And the community really rallied, and the community was like, we want anti-racist schools. But no one had any concrete, like, what does that mean and what are we going to do? And frankly, like the board, if you'd asked the board the day before that incident happened, they would have said that they are implementing policies that lead to an anti-racist school district. And then to like rip some of that away and like talk to students and talk to parents and to find out like what's going on, and that there's still a system put in place where like teachers and administrators are scared to report when students are frankly being racist on campus and would rather kind of put it in a corner than deal with it. Just kind of shows like, again, knowledge is power. Like these courses will go through everything from labor relations to, yes, also like how to interact in a board meeting. But it also really just goes in depth into so many different policy areas that you at least have a baseline knowledge to navigate many of the different issue areas that are going to come up in your local K-12 district, whether you're a board member or a concerned citizen. So I think the best thing we can all do is arm as many people who are interested in educational justice with the knowledge to advocate from the outside or the inside.
Wow, you all are incredible. Thank you so much, Melissa and Becca and Julian. And I have to say that I did kind of feel like we had the world's best inaugural cohort, but our second cohort might take the cake. We'll have to see. I guess one thing I just really wanted to make sure, I know we're already over time, we forgot to mention that all the cost of participating in the Academy is fully covered. So this is a cost neutral program. We cover hotels. and reimburse folks for transportation and food. Hopefully folks on this call don't laugh at me because it took a little longer than we wanted to, but we want to make sure that cost is no barrier. Running a race is already expensive enough. And so what we're trying to do is break down all the walls that kind of are keeping working families participating in this. So I, didn't want to like pull a fast one and you think that this is actually something like some scam at the end of this that we're asking you for money. We would love, and for Julian can speak to this, like Cindy has taken meetings in her car, Julian has been taking care of a baby during meetings, like, this is for the working person. And so there is, we make as many accommodations as possible. If you needed to bring children to the academy sessions, the in-person sessions, that's always available. And, we're really just here to work with you to bring EJ to you in whatever fashion that looks like. And I'll pass it back to Sally to wrap us up.
Yeah, so we are over time, but this is a space for you all. We want to make sure that we get to any questions that you have. So just, wanted to open it again in case anyone had any questions, especially for either me, Chris, or Brianna about the academy as a whole, or about the application process. And it's okay if you don't. You can always reach out to us. We are available. I can drop my email into the chat, and then you can feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions. If not, just wanted to once again thank you all for joining. Thanking our alum for joining and speaking to your experience. Thank you for the folks who are considering applying. We really hope that we get to work with you all, because it sounds like you all have incredible experiences and are going to do great things. And thanks to the team, Brianna and Chris, for helping put this together. Have a great night, everybody.
I miss your faces. So good to see you guys. Thank you guys for having me.
Bye, Julian. I'll call you.
Take care.
Hi, everybody. Take care.